So today I want to showcase the knowledge management system I've built out in Notion that I'll be using for 2026. So this system is built off of Tiago Forte's code framework, which he outlined in Building a Second Brain. So code, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is simply capturing resources into your system, then organizing them with tags and metadata. In this system, I distill those into individual notes, and then I leverage those notes in my work and output. So I use my notes as the building blocks in projects and content. So that's the framework it's built off. And this template is also built off my Notion blueprint system, which I also have as a free template. I'll link it below. But basically, if you're not familiar, I have a separate video that runs through why the system is structured the way it is. But basically, all you need to know is that your master databases manage all your content in the background. They manage all your content centrally in the background. And then you can use hubs and dashboards to view all of your data contextually. So jumping back to the knowledge management system, just to show you what I mean. If I go to the master databases, there's 4 main databases that are powering the system. You have your library database, and that is where I capture all my resources. So that would be everything from articles, YouTube videos, to movies, video games, any kind of content or media that I might want to reference in this system. Then I have notes. So these would either be my own notes or distilled quotes or images from the different resources I've captured. Then you have people. People are the authors, the content creators, hosts, whatever it is of the different resources you've already captured in your system. So it's just to make that connection between your resources and notes to the creators. Then similarly for tags, tags are just used to capture the general area or topic that the resources fall under. So those are the 4 main databases in the system. There is also an automations database here. Again, I actually touch on that more in my blueprint system video, but basically different automations that work in this system that automate some of the processes are captured here, just so you have them there for reference too. So in this system, each database has a corresponding hub. So in the library hub, you will have the different contextual views of your library items. So it's pretty straightforward. You have an inbox view for new items in your system. You have an in-progress view for what you're currently reading or doing. And then you have your backlog and then an archive. Within the library hub, you also have a specific entertainment dashboard that I've built in. So this is very similar to the home library hub, but it's specific to entertainment. So it's looking for movies, TV shows, video games, and populating them in those views, in these views. So you can see what's in progress, what's in the backlog, and what's archived. So that's a good example of managing your data centrally in the database and then viewing it contextually. So all of these items belong to one database. I can jump back to that. If I go home, master databases and library, you can see that I've got movies, TV shows, and articles in here, but I don't necessarily want to view them all into one context. So that's why I've divided that out into 2 different dashboards. I've got my library for all my articles and other content, and then the entertainment dashboard specifically for like movies and TV shows and stuff. And just one thing to note on the way I'm jumping around the template here. This template is designed to be used in your site. I don't have it set up that way here. So this is how it is, my own one in my system. I've got my HQ page, which is the equivalent of home, and then I have all my different hubs and dashboards nested beneath that. So if you were to duplicate this template, the home you would have under your workspace here, and then the individual dashboards would be nested under that. That's just something to note as well. But in terms of then how I capture stuff into the system, so if I jump to my library here, if I wanted to capture something into my system, so there's a couple different tools I use for capture. I use Snipped for podcasts, and I use Readwise Reader to get YouTube transcripts into Notion. Readwise Reader isn't specifically for getting YouTube transcripts, or not full transcripts, it would be excerpts from a transcript. It's not specifically designed for that, but it does it quite well, and they both have built-in integrations with Notion, so that's helpful. But in general, if I am browsing the web and I want to save an article or something like that, or a website, I use the Save to Notion extension, which is a free extension. I think there's a paid option, but I'm just using the free version, and that's enough for me. So this is our demo database we're working with. I want to save this article into my library. I'm going to apply the article template. You can add all of your database fields to this form as well, so you could populate them right here as you're capturing. But I generally don't want to do that. I just want to get the article into my system, and then I can organize it there when I'm ready to. So if I save that page, that should save to my library database, and we should see it surface in our library inbox. I'm just going to give that a minute to come in. I might give it a refresh. Yeah, there we go. There it is. Cool. So that has landed in my inbox view, which simply means the categorize checkbox hasn't been checked. So this is where I would then organize it. So for the sake of this, I'm going to say we'll tag with productivity. I believe I took this article from Fort Labs, so that is Tiago Forte's website. So I'm going to connect it to him too. I'm also going to set this as in progress, as it's something I want to look at now. So I'm going to click categorize, so that removes it from this view and brings it down to our in progress view. So that's it captured and organized. So if I wanted to then distill some of this content into individual notes, I can open the page. I use the side view a lot. I think it's the side page view, but you can also open it up as a full page if you prefer. You might do that for the sake of this. So saving articles is great. I might only save an article because one particular quote resonated with me, and I want to be able to surface that quote pretty easily. So, I mean, what a lot of people do, or what you can do, is use just a background and highlight it, but the content is still buried within the article, so it's not that easy for me to find. So what I do is I capture these excerpts in their own page, in a notes page in the notes database. So I have, let me copy the link to this blocked. Actually, yeah, just copy it. And then if I go to the details panel here, you'll see there's a couple of different buttons here. Archive is simply going to archive the article, change the status from in progress, but we have these other buttons to create notes, media, or a quote. These all do a similar thing. They just apply a different template in the notes database, and then there's some automations that kick in if you select a quote or media. So I guess the distinction to make here between a quote and a note is my own personal note. So if I have a thought on this article, I'll click note and write whatever I want to. So I can do that here. Now, I'm adding my note content to a synced block, but I can explain why I do that later. But here are my thoughts on this article. So that is a note, and you can see that is now related to that article. And if I click into that note, an automation has also kicked in that has applied the tag, the same tag as what's in the library item. But if I was to add a quote, so I think we said we'd use this, I copy this. I'm going to add a new quote, and I'm going to call the quote the same thing as the heading, just for convenience. So why this matters now. If I was actually making a note, I might give it a bit more context, but that's fine for now. Actually, I don't even need to create this synced block here, I don't think. So if I just paste, oh no, okay, that's fine. What I was missing there was there's definitely, if I just take, if I just take an individual text block and copy the link to the block here, say, it will give you the option to just add it directly as a synced block. But because I had multiple text blocks, I think that was why it didn't give me that option there. But that's fine. We have our note in a synced block, and you can see that has applied the same tags. It's also populated the people tag for the quote. That's because I'm attributing this quote to that person, whereas for my notes, the notes are my own thoughts, so I don't necessarily want to attribute it to somebody else. So that is how the system works. We've captured, we've organized, and we've distilled our notes, and we've distilled our resource into an individual note. So why is that useful? And why am I using synced blocks? So basically, the power of a synced block is, if you're not familiar, is it gives you one source of truth. This block syncs across every instance of it. So I can have this block here, and I can reference it somewhere else. And I can still see that block is related to the original note and the article, and then whatever additional pages I added to. So that is very helpful in and of itself. And the reason I do that is for the last part of the code framework, the expression piece. So expression is basically just leveraging the work you've done in capturing, organizing, and distilling, and expressing that or using that in your own work. So if you have a system like this and you integrate it with a project management system or a content management system in Notion, it can be really, really powerful. So I do have a separate project management system, but I'll showcase that in another video. So for the sake of this, let's add a new page here. And let's pretend this is part of our content system and we have a new blog post. And I want to quote this note from Tiago Forte in my blog post. So I can have my own blog content, the quote, more blog content. Now, I might want to obvious that this is a quote. So what could I do there? I could turn this into a quote. And it's giving me all the quotes, but you get the general idea. You can turn it into quotes and then you can attribute it to, if I mention. So the mention there actually leads me nicely into my next point. So I use page mentions in my note content a lot to enrich the text. That is very helpful in making connections between different items across my workspace. But those connections are only visible at the page level, right? I need to click into the page and see my note, and the page and see my note to see the connections there. But I'd also like for those connections to be visible at a database level, so I can just look at a database view and see those connections there. So I've built a automation in N8n that converts these mentions to relations in my notes database. And that's not configured out of the box in the knowledge management system template, but I'll include the N8n framework and some instructions on how you can get that set up in your system if you want. So just to show you how it works, I add the linked block here, and I'll show you why the linked block is important as well after. That automation also populates a word count as part of that flow as well. Great, so you can see the tags got populated and the two different tools got populated there as well. And that's in my own system, but you'll see other examples, demo content examples back in our library system. So just to show you now what that looks like. So we've distilled those notes there, and just to show you what that might look like in the Notes Hub. That is a generic search view. I actually use this quite a lot. I find I'm often looking for a very specific note, and I might necessarily know what it's tagged with. I might necessarily know that it's has a certain tag. So if I just jump here and use some of these quick filters to try and narrow it down, and if I know it's a certain type, or if I know the title includes something, anything like that, I actually use those search views quite a bit for my notes. And then similarly, we have an inbox view here. Note that the note we just took, our quote, isn't in that. Isn't here. It is here. Sorry, excuse me. So that is not. That's the way you want to view that. Yeah, so note that the note we just took isn't in the inbox view because we added it within context, right? So if I add a note in context, and by in context I mean we already knew it was related to that library piece, I use a forcing filter or a button in the automation, or an extra step in the automation to automatically categorize it, right? So say for this, if I was to add a new node under design, I would consider that node to be categorized. So the categorize field is already checked, and that's why that's added there. Copy button is actually something I'm going to remove because it doesn't work the way I want it to work. But basically what I was trying to do is, I don't know if I have a better example here, trying to pull in the linked block content, but it's actually easier to do that with just the linked block property. So I'm going to show that here out of this view, and you'll see it in the other views in the template then as well. So the reason I use this linked block property, and this linked block property is literally just copying the URL of the synced block. So you can use Alt-Shift-L when you're in the block and just paste it there, is so that I can access the note content, which is this at the database level, right? I don't want to have to click into the page to get to the note. So I'm at this database view level. I can see note content, unless it's quite long, some of it might be cut off, but in general, I can see all the note content. And if I want to leverage that in something else I'm doing, I can simply go to this field. Now, you have to be careful here, because if I just click on the URL, it's going to open that synced block and take me away from that database view, which isn't what I want. So you just have to click on the field, but not on the URL. Then I hit Control A just to get the full text, and Control C, right? And then you can paste that wherever you want to use it. So I'll just add it to the bottom of this page just for the purpose of the demo. Use synced block again, and then I can see that's my note, and this is the notes dashboard that I've added it to. So that's it. Basically, that's how the templating system works. I'll have this template linked below. I'll have my, what else? The blueprint system linked below. That one is free. I'll have the N8n workflow for dimension automations linked below. That's free too. So even if you don't want to use this template, there are the tools and resources there for you to build it yourself and replicate something similar. I also have another template on project management that I'll have a video on soon if it's not out already. And there is a template that fully integrates this knowledge management system with that project management system. So you get that expression piece all into one template. But thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.